Hello everybody and welcome back. As I was talking about that few of the events that is natural hazards can be predicted well in advance, okay, because we have the information from the satellite data. So, we can predict that how much rainfall will occur in that particular area, and accordingly we can estimate that how much amount of water is going to come into the reservoir, either it is a dam or an area, okay. Based on that we can judge that how much area will get inundated. This is one of the example from the IndoGangetic Plain, and which took place in 2008, okay. Now again there is a very important geomorphic feature here, or we can say the physiographic changes which are taking place between the hilly track and the plain areas. So, at the so streams which are coming from the hilly terrain and flowing onto the IndoGangetic Plain will usually have multiple channels, okay, like they will have multiple channels. Maybe I can draw it on the upper part so that it is clear. So, this is the earlier channel or the original channel of Kosi river, but it has multiple channels which are over here, okay. But through that the river does not flow usually, okay. So, the actual part of the channel was before 2004 2008 it flowed in this direction here, okay. So, this was the original path, but it took this one because of the extreme flooding event, okay. So, it took this is what we call the paleo channel. So, this was the paleo channel, ancient channel through which it flowed. It took up that part, okay, and flowed up through that. So, this is for sure, because based on the its history, if you go back into like 10 20 to 30 years or 50 years, it has flowed through several paths, okay. So, at present it is here, but during the peak flood it may take this route or it may take this one. So, this happened in 2008 and it affected many people from this region. So, if you carefully look at the satellite data, one can easily judge that how much area is going to be inundated. So, you have the records, so we of the past years, okay. So, if you are having good records, good amount of number of records, then you can predict the future flood events and all that, okay. So, here this is again the Kosi river, and you have different color marks here that is showing the inundated areas, and this information has been collected by the satellite observatory, okay, Darmouth Flood Observatory, and the data which has been shown here, this is of 2003, which marks the inundated area, and then you have further up to 1988, okay. So, you have the information of many years, okay. So, the data point is more, and hence you can also generate the flood zonation map for this area, okay. And this is showing what we were talking about 2008, okay. This one is 2008 here, this one, and this area is getting affected every year, okay, which has been shown by this one. So, you have an understanding that how much area is going to be affected in future, okay, and accordingly you can have the town planning from this region. So, this is one of the advantage of such events, okay, which we can easily plan and safeguard the people from this area, okay. This was in 2013 in Kedarnath, because of the sudden pouring of huge amount of water that is what we call the cloudburst. Okay. Now, some of the teams they have they studied the sediment records from this region, and their studies revealed that this was not the only event which occurred in 2013, because the deposits which are available in the sedimentary succession can tell you that how many events of similar kind occurred in the past also. That can also help you in choosing your area for construction and all that. Okay. So, this was not the only event which took place in 2013, similar events took place in past also. Okay. So, this was the scenario of what we call the debris deposit. So, we have large boulders which came in along the landslip. Okay. And floods in Uttarkashi, okay, again during that period we had this shows that how poor understanding we have to put our houses or settlements along the river banks. Okay. And this is one of the best example. Okay. So, if you have a river channel, mostly if I'll just draw the cross section here. So, we will have this is our river bed here, and then we are coming up, and then we are having another one. So, the steps here, this is one step here, there is another step here. Okay, on the either side, these steps are nothing but what we call is the terraces, and here we have another one. So, we have if I put here, the cross section is like it goes like this, and then it goes up. Okay. So, we have two terraces. So, usually what happens is that we all love to build our houses on very flat area. Okay. And this flat areas along the river channels or the river valleys are available in form of the old flat plains or terraces. Okay. And similarly, most of the houses were being constructed along this terrace. Okay. So, this is higher, of course, people will say that okay fine, it is quite high from the river bed, but the problems which were been faced during this flood was the underscouring of the terrace material, and that resulted into the collapsing of most of the houses in this region. Okay. So, if you see some close-ups, this is what happened. Okay. So, you had peak floods and most of the houses were sitting right into the waters. Okay. And this was because of the lack of understanding that what will happen if this river is having peak flood in future. Okay. So, if you carefully see this one here, there is an erosion here, and this house definitely must have gone off. Okay, during the flood events. Okay. So far the information, if you take the statue of Shiv, the height of the statue is almost like 15 feet or more. Okay. And during the flood this was the condition. Okay. So, one should take into consideration what happened in 2013 in Uttarkashi and should consider this in developing the flood hazards maps. Okay. This is another hazard which is extremely catastrophic, tsunami, and this is a photograph from 2004 Sumatra Andaman event, okay, where you can see that most of the houses along the coast, okay, were been completely wiped off. So, they constructed because they were never had an idea that this area will have the flooding or will be affected by any such tsunamis. Okay. And the height of the waves which was been experienced here was up to 7 to 8 meters. They were quite deadly. So, if you have an understanding that this areas or the areas along the coastal zones will be affected by tsunamis and will have the wave heights up to 8 to 9 meters and run up to couple of kilometers, then accordingly you can plan your settlements there. Okay. There is another example from that area. Lot many houses been completely toppled off because of the extreme tsunami waves. Some areas got subsided. This is from Port Blair area, which experienced subsidence by almost like 1 meter. This is from the Great Nicobar or Campbell Bay, where the low-lying areas which were sitting close to the coast faced inundation, and they are facing inundation today also because the area subsided by almost 3 meters in this area. Okay. This is what happened in 2011 Tohoku earthquake, but not many people got killed because they understood the event and they were aware of that, but some areas still resulted into devastation because they never expected such a large tsunami in that particular region. Okay. So, this was the pattern of damage which they experienced. Okay. Huge vessels from the ocean were been drifted onto the land. So, these are a couple of tsunamis, devastating or deadly tsunamis which occurred along the coastline in world, and this is what we have, like 2004 we are having from the Indian Ocean, and then we are having this one as from 2011. This were the quite damaging one. So, how to provide safe environment to our people? As I told that if we predict and warn the people, okay, then we can reduce the or we can minimize the hazard part. Okay. So, by identifying the location, by determining the probability of its occurrence, proper identification and understanding of precursory events, forecasting the events, and then issuing the warning. Okay. So, if you do this, then you will be able to minimize. Okay. So, if we take the flow chart, we have to collect more data. So, in terms of what we were talking about the floods and all that, so we have more number of data points there, and then we can we understand that phenomena very precisely. So, one can do that. So, after having the scientific inputs, okay, and then analysis and prediction, we should pass on that information to the government organization and then local offices and states, and we can issue the warnings there. Okay. To public where the event is likely to occur. So, what if you recall back what we have discussed? So, we have talked about the Varda cyclone where the warnings were been issued, we understood where it started and how it moved, where it went, that also we knew, and then we talked about the location of fault. If we understand, then accordingly we can plan the structure, and then we were talking about the floods. So, if you have more number of data point, likewise what we observed if the floods in the IndoGangetic Plain along Kosi river. So, we can have the understanding that how much area is going to get inundated, and if we are having peak flood, and also based on the sediment records one can identify the type of events which will occur in that particular area, that which what we were talking about of Kedarnath event. Okay. Now, benefits and disadvantages. Of course, the flooding causes damage to human settlements, erode lot of material from the mountainous areas, deposit it in the lower reaches along the river flood plains, okay, and add a lot of nutrients to form fertile soil. Okay. This is what we have in the IndoGangetic Plain. So, a lot of erosion is taking place in the mountainous areas, and we are getting a lot of fertile land, but at the same time, okay, we also have the landslide in the hilly areas resulting into the formation of dams. Okay. So, erosion will also result into the landslides, and landslides can result into the formation of natural dams, okay, along the river courses. Okay. Of course, provides valuable resource in form of storage of water, but when it burst, okay, or breach, it will result into the local flooding in the areas. Okay. Volcanic eruptions again, they are very good in terms of the nutrients which are coming up, because they can give us a very good agricultural fields, good soil and good aqua life in the region. That this is because after the eruption is stopped. Okay. And then of course, the faults, okay, causes the blockage of groundwater, and the best example is given above from the San Andreas fault system. Okay. So, this is an almost like dried area where you are having the growth of palm trees. Okay. And this growth of palm trees is along the fault line where it has blocked and provided a water pool for the plants and all that. Okay. So, one can have advantages as well as disadvantages from such events. Okay. Now, coming to the Himalayan part, if we take, of course, we are having a very widespread Indo-Gangetic plains, and then we are having sub-Himalayas, we are having Tibets and all that. Of course, the rise of Himalaya provided us the different or we can say the monsoon at least. Okay. And then the erosion of this higher Himalayas or the lesser Himalayas or sub-Himalayas provided a very fertile land, that is what we call the Indo-Gangetic Plain, and we are, of course, this is because of the mighty rivers which got developed here. Okay. So, advantage if we take about the Himalayas and the Tibetan, okay, it also we can say that they are the world highest mountains, okay, world's highest plateau, that is the Tibet. You are having world's thickest crust, okay, influence on climate, sedimentary processes, and of course, along with that we are having the scenic views from this region. Okay. So, the hazards what we are looking at are having advantages and disadvantages, and this is one of the very important example, the best example we have of the formation of Himalayas. Okay. Now, earthquakes are related to mountain building processes. Mountains provide us beautiful scenic areas which attracts tourists, and people love to visit to admire the beauty. Mountain chains like Himalaya has given lot to Indian subcontinent. Okay. It controls rainfall. Rivers emerging from Himalaya, okay, have provided an extensive floodplains full of fertile soil, that is what we are having the Indo-Gangetic plains. Okay. Used extensively for farming, it has provided wealth of minerals, mineral deposits and other resources. Okay. However, the adverse effects are that the earthquakes in this region are deadly and with large magnitude, prone to landslides, okay, flood every year in some part of Indo-Gangetic plain areas. Okay. So, we have advantages and disadvantages in this pattern. Okay. Along with that, if we talk about the atmospheric hazards, we are facing what we call the climate change. Today, the scientists are concerned about the climate change very much, because if this process is too fast, okay, then numerous dangerous situations could arise. Okay. One is likewise the global warming will take place, and because if the earth warms, then partial melting of ice sheets or glaciers could cause rise in sea levels. Okay. And could cause flooding along the river banks, and stormy conditions could affect the cities along the coast, and that is what we are experiencing. We are having extreme events every year. Okay. So, I will stop here and we will continue with the new topic in the next lecture. Thank you so much.